we did have the first balanced budget since man walked on the moon, and it was a 10-year effort. And by the way, I'm as furious with all of you about how irresponsible the Republicans were starting in 2001. I started to see it deteriorate in 2000, and it saddened me. But then it just full-scale collapsed. And when we got that budget done, which, by the way, the press said could never be done because I laid out a marker that said we would not just balance the budget, but we would cut taxes and we would pay down debt. And they said it can't be done, impossible. Well, at the end of the day, not only did we balance the budget, and not only did we cut taxes, but we paid down the largest amount of debt in the history of the country. And when I left in 2000, left Washington, we had surpluses in the trillions that could have been used to fix Social Security and begin to solve the fundamental problems of Medicare. And unfortunately, power corrupts, I guess, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, and the Republicans failed. And as a result, they were punished for it. And hopefully they'll get their sea legs. But the connection to Cleveland also has been cemented by my relationship with Invacare. I serve on the board with a lot of fine people, including Dan Moore, who's a great Democrat. He's a wonderful guy, a great thinker, a serial entrepreneur. I serve on that board with Martin Harris, who's up there, and we'll talk about him a little bit later at the Cleveland Clinic. Been so many people, Jim Bolin, many of you that you would know, and it's just cemented my relationships and my caring about this town, regardless of the outcome of an election. So what about Cleveland? You know, I kind of went back and did a little checking about Cleveland. You know, we started off as a great agriculture community in the beginning. A lot of people from New England moved here. We had the good soil, and they came here in droves, and it was fantastic. And then we became leaders in transportation with the development of the canal. Yeah, they tried to steal it from us in New York, but we outsmarted them, and we built a canal, and it brought prosperity. John D. Rockefeller. At one time they said perhaps the richest man in the world, and I just read the other day, perhaps the richest man who ever lived. And we know what he did in oil and refinery, and he was a great leader here in Cleveland. In communications, we developed the Western Union. We were very significant in taking advantage of the economic opportunities. David Morgenthaler says it's always about the new thing. And maybe at that point with communications, it was the new thing. And so we were on fire. We were doing great up here. And then the auto industry came, and we actually built the first car that made its way all the way across the country and back. And arts, culture, sports, Playhouse Square. It was just so awesome when I heard about Playhouse Square and how they have been so smart to use an entrepreneurial attitude to buy things and to be able to generate income. You know, down in Columbus, we were losing the symphony because they were only dependent on patrons. Well, the folks up here were smart. They said, we just can't depend on patrons. We got to figure out another way to generate the revenue. And there's so many great things up here about the culture, including my friend Mel Mixon, the Mixon Hall, which is one of the great acoustic centers in the world, and I'll bet we'll end up getting some of the greatest artists to come to this town, and it would be just fantastic. And then, you know, we fell behind. Morgenthaler told me the other day he thinks we fell behind because we relied on an auto industry that was really progressive and really robust for 100 years when we only should have relied on it for 60 years. Frankly, it's where the state of Ohio's been. We've relied on old industries to support ourselves, on our economic growth. And if you don't progress, whether you're a business, whether you're a basketball team, can't let that go. You're going to die. You're going to fail. And we were not being progressive. We did not look into the future. But, of course, I think Cleveland can still be a great city, but it's going to take leveraging the assets that we have in northern Ohio and figuring out a way to get everybody to cooperate and chart a course towards the new thing. Now, all that sounds good, and it can work, but it can't work with the economic environment we have in the state of Ohio. And I want to just spend a few minutes to talk about it. I like to say if you want to meet a Hollywood or a movie star, you go to Hollywood. If you want to meet a rich, successful, entrepreneurial Ohioan, you go to Naples, Florida, because they've all gone there. And if they haven't moved there yet because of the low income tax and no death tax, every quarter their accountant meets with them. And this is not theory. I'm just not another politician with some fancy words about business. I've been in it. And I've done it, and I understand it. And I've worked hard to earn the education to know what drives success in business. And I can tell you that if you have a decision about turning your money over to your family or turning your money over to the government, you tell me what the choice is going to be. And that's one of the reasons why we've been in trouble. Ohio ranks 47th in having one of the highest in having a tax climate that encourages business growth. We have the 7th highest state and local tax burden. When I came to Ohio in 1970 to go to Ohio State, we were one of the lowest taxing states in the country. And think about what it was like in those days. Everything was going well. And now we've increased the size of government, driven up the tax take, and CEOs around the country last year ranked Ohio the 45th business state in America. That 45th. So if they're sitting in the room trying to figure out where they're going to locate their business, they're not coming here. And by the way, we know how many businesses have just left. We've just seen a hole shot in the heart of Dayton, Ohio with the loss of NCR. 125 years, and they're gone. Now, at the same time, if you lived in any of the other 46 states, your personal income would have grown faster than if you live in Ohio. So if you talk to moms and dads, all of whom want fatter paychecks, frankly, you're going to move somewhere else. So young people are leaving, 7,000 last year. Families are leaving, 45,000 over the last 2 years. Businesses are leaving. The environment, business environment is so poor that CEOs say this is one of the last places in America where we want to go. It's a prescription for a death spiral. It's a prescription for failure. Now, you know, our regulation policy is not very good either. Our policy is cumbersome. It takes longer than other states. Regulations tend to go above and beyond. I'll give you one good example. Manufacturing company wanted to build a $400,000 facility. They went to a southern state, obtained all the necessary permits in 90 days while in construction. When they proposed the same type of facility in Ohio, they were told they must wait 12 to 18 months for a permit before they could start construction. See, regulators go in and they give orders. Many times those orders don't make any sense. They're done in an environment where people are not in touch with what small, medium, and large businesses have to put up with. And when you go into a small business and you hassle them and you impose rules that don't make any sense, you're not hassling the business, you're killing somebody's job. So our regulatory system has been out of date. Our tax system speaks for itself. By the way, our government, see, I think the government of the state of Ohio is built on kind of an early 20th century model. And I know that over the last 30, 40 years, I think the special interests have called the tune. I don't think that we have designed the government of the state of Ohio for a 21st century model. Now, if businesses don't design their businesses for a 21st century model, they die. And if government doesn't design its business for a 21st century model, it begins to wither and die as well. And so you get into a situation where special interests, lobbyists, whoever, they start calling the tune. And the government can't see its way clear to make the kind of decisions that can be effective, that can continue to allow a government that serves the people, and one that provides the space for the kind of tax cuts that we need in this state in order to compete. Let's talk about schools for a second. You know, I don't think you can have good education without money, but I don't believe money guarantees you any sort of good education. U.S. 15-year-olds scored behind 24 industrial countries in math and 20 industrialized countries in science, okay? I've spent a lot of time in the Silicon Valley. I've met the people that created Google, Yahoo, PayPal. I understand the speed of microprocessing and the new things they develop all the time in the Silicon Valley. That's one part of America that seems to be working.